OK, let's get straight into our next story, which is puberty blockers are banned in the UK for under 18s. I can't, for the life of me, understand why anyone would be angry. No, forget that. Why anybody would prescribe chemical castration to a 13-year-old. I think... by the way, I'm going to say this before we bring on our next guest. I think people in the Tavistock clinic need to hire a good lawyer, because I think a lot of them are going to prison. I've always said this, Asher, genuinely. When I was a kid, you used to watch these programmes about Welsh care homes and the abuse that took place, and you'd think to yourself, how was this allowed to happen at the time? I believe the next generation of people are going to watch about the Tavistock clinic, and that's going to be the big child abuse scandal of our age. Anyway, Debbie Hayton is the author of Transsexual Apostate, and it's fair to say... I think he's reasonably pleased with today's result.
I think relieved would be a better word, Andre. Nobody can, I don't think, can be pleased about what's been going on. No. But thankfully, future groups of children won't be treated, to use that term generally.
Or would you say
in
abuse?
The way that previous groups
would you say it's abuse?
Well,
if you're blocking someone's hormones, it's not just puberty. You're blocking everything that will change their bone density, their heart. Yeah. If they're a bloke, they could have a weak heart. They'll be sterile. There's so many... But it's not just about whether you're a male or... Well, it won't change that anyway, but it will affect you in many other physical ways.
Absolutely. And for over 10 years this was going on, and evidence was collected by the Tavistock Clinic, and they could find no strong evidence to say that it was actually doing any good. So as well as all the harms which you have mentioned, there was no recognised benefit from it either.
Here's the thing that I don't understand. So Douglas Murray talked about the Lady Gaga-isation of this debate, this born this way baby, right? As far as I'm concerned, if you are a man and want to become a woman, do it. Right? I mean, I don't think necessarily...
some people say you can't do it.
Yeah, OK. Well, if you want to have any body modifications, anything like that, look, I genuinely think very invasive surgery when it's not necessary is a bad idea. I probably wouldn't go for liposuction or facelifts or things like that as well. But OK, fair enough. What I find bizarre is this claim where they go, no. I don't want to become a woman. I am a woman already, and now you have to accept me. And you think, well, hang on a second. When you're saying accept me, you're proposing to amputate your genitals. That presumably represents some form of a change. I've accepted you. It's you that hasn't accepted yourself. And I think that it's just become very confused. But the real question I've got for you, Debbie, is this. How can we balance this between the rights of adults to do what they want and dealing with this crazed trans lobby, which are just determined to foist this on vulnerable children, just in a sense to prove that they're not doing something wrong themselves?
Well, we do in lots of other cases. We separate what adults are allowed to do and what children are allowed to do. Adults can have tattoos. Adults can buy tobacco. Adults can do lots of things. But somehow this was seen as different. And children who are not allowed to have a tattoo because it's permanent were allowed to do this. And I'd argue that this is far more serious and far more significant than a tattoo.
But the problem is, I was listening to somebody saying on these sort of trans parents forum, what they say to you as a parent is, if you do not allow your child to transition, they will commit suicide. And because obviously parents are not going to render their children infertile and go through all of this unless there is some form of push factor, and that push factor is this, by the way, very shaky claim that if you do not allow children to transition, they'll commit suicide.
The other way around's true. They can regret it and then commit suicide. There's many people trying to detransition, which obviously meant those experts who changed their mind were wrong when they told them they were a male and not a female, or the other way around.
Well, it's totally irresponsible to tell anybody that unless your child has this treatment, then they will commit suicide. It's just not true. And before this treatment became available, there wasn't huge cohorts of children suffering with mental health issues as a result. It seems to me that the availability of this treatment and the promise of this treatment is causing the problems, which rather than solving them.
And it's a fashion, isn't it? You're getting schools now where like 7 of the girls are saying, "Oh no, I'm a male," and then like 30 years ago, you'd get maybe 20 or 10 people with a whole year in the country that would say they want to transition.
And the other thing is, look, let's just deal with the elephant in the room, right? Tomboys, when they grow up, are fully hot. Right, let's just be honest.
For instance.
Let's look. They don't grow up to be trans. They grow up to be quite sporting, and as long as you're careful, right, don't let her ride a horse because her backside will be the size of a house. But
no, it's good for the backside.
Generally, my point is, and I'm being flippant, but my point is, girls who do the kind of tomboy thing are not trans. Boys who are into poetry and a bit camp are not women.
Well, yes, I know a number of adult women who said they struggled with the idea of growing up, and if this treatment was available to them at the time, then they may well have taken it, and it wouldn't have helped at all because they grew out of the condition. And the scientific evidence shows that the biggest cure for childhood gender dysphoria, if you want to use that term, is puberty itself. And if you block puberty, then you're denying children the solution to it, which has been experienced by previous generations.
And it makes them a centre of attention. It makes them a sort of almost celebrity at the moment. I mean, there's an overrepresentation of people with autism and other sort of not mental illnesses, but difference. What do they call it?
Neurodivergence. Yeah, I mean, this is something that's quite difficult, and I'll say this to both Asher and Debbie. One of my problems is because I've got a number of friends who are autistic, and I think in a sense it is fair to say that it can be a real benefit simply because it gives you focus and an ability to really specialise in particular areas. But you know, there is some obsessive behaviour associated with the trans lobby, which I think is not a genuine need for supporting trans people, but more a reflection of the focus of the autistic people who are going through this procedure in disproportionate numbers.
Well, you're right, but the evidence says that those people are going through it in disproportionate numbers. But so what questions should we be asking about this? Are we treating gender dysphoria, or are we treating just the normal range of human behaviour, where some people are autistic, and it's quite normal, is that?
But how they get away with it if we try and have an argument? Because I know when a female wants to identify as male, they can cut a bit of your arm off and make sort of craft a penis, and you'll get hairs growing inside. And I saw this one trans person who's saying she's going to die young, or he, and you know, so it's obviously not bad. But because they're experts, I go, well, you're not the expert. I've been through medical training and I know, but you know, as not an expert, this is unbelievably wrong. But they've sort of convinced themselves it's sort of the thing in their trade. They've got to go with that.
Yes, and people are in this up to their necks, really. You were saying before about where this next number of lawsuits is going to come from. I think looking at what's been happening is we should not be criticising the children involved in this. The children have been swept into this. It's the people who should know better, doctors, politicians, policymakers, who have just seemed to disengage their brains and not ask the questions they should have done.
But Debbie, it's the same as everything. It's the same as everything in our politics. These politicians know it's garbage, but they're just complete and total cowards. You know, I give the example all the time, not particularly of trans, but I used to go on Good Morning Britain or Sky or whatever, debating a Labour MP about uncontrolled immigration, and they'd get into the green room and go, well, obviously I agree with you, but I couldn't say that on air. I do not believe that the vast majority of members of Parliament believe puberty blockers are absolutely brilliant and pushing children into this is a good idea. It's just an easier life to pretend that they support it.
Yeah, another way of looking at that is it's just not worth using political capital on this. I think the attitude that some people have taken may well be not much bad will happen, but a lot bad has happened, and those who have been overseeing it are responsible for it.
Or you could say, Debbie, you could say, and we'll leave it here, the other option is you could say to yourself, they're expendable. Don't worry about it. A few thousand kids who have very invasive surgery and end up dying young. Look, I won't get politically tagged for this, and therefore their lives are a price worth paying. A simply reprehensible position for any country. Anyway, Debbie Hayton, thank you so much.
Debbie.
She is the author of Transsexual Apostate, and it's fair to say is not Mrs. Popularity.